Is this what our boys died for on D-Day, happening exactly 80 years ago to this day? Listen to what this World War II veteran had to say about it.
When you're here with all of these brothers and people who experienced the war as you did, and also the subsequent wars in Korea and Vietnam, what do you think about the state of our country today? How do you feel about the country that you worked so hard to stay free, to keep free?
The real truth?
Yeah.
I feel like a foreigner in my own country lots of times, and I don't like it. It makes my heart real heavy. And I just hope we can pull out of this. There's too much Hollywood going on in Washington all the time. The important subjects they don't cover. So the thing is, I hope all the guys will rally up and we'll go back and straighten it all out.
And take a look at the results of a survey conducted by the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. When it comes to Great Britain and her Commonwealth, nearly half of her young adults do not even know what D-Day is. But what can you expect when you teach that Western history is evil and then you replace the descendants of those war fighters with foreigners who are encouraged by the ruling leftist regime to be openly hostile to its history? Joining us now to discuss is Josiah Lippincott, a Marine veteran and a PhD student at Hillsdale College. He appears regularly on conservative podcasts and has written for publications including The Federalist and The American Conservative, among many others. Josiah, thanks for being here tonight.
Hey, Kara, thank you so much for having me.
Great. So that World War II D-Day veteran that we just heard from, he's one of many. We've heard this theme before. The greatest generation, sadly, many of them are passing and have passed at this point. But those still left alive, they say they don't recognize their country. They say this isn't what we fought and died for. What are your thoughts here now 80 years since the storming of the beaches of Normandy?
Well, the unfortunate truth, I think, is that in a way, this is what they fought and died for. As we've seen with COVID and the radicalization of American politics, I think it's led a lot of people, especially young people, to sort of dig into the roots of our contemporary world order. And it is the truth that this world order was born out of the post-1945 arrangement of the United Nations and of the post-war consensus. And that world involved the Soviet Union. In fact, the justification for having a second front on D-Day was due to Soviet lobbying of FDR and Churchill. And FDR sided with Stalin's plans for a second front in France, as opposed to Churchill's plans to have a landing in the Balkans, which would have taken away key territories from the Soviet Union in the post-war order. Remember, all this was set up between the Allies. I mean, you can go Google photos of the big three at Yalta and Tehran, and you can see them. Joseph Stalin, a brutal mass murdering dictator, is right there among the Allies, a part of the United Nations, which is what they called themselves as they defeated Nazi Germany and Japan. And so in a way, that logic was already being articulated. The idea that we would have decolonization, open borders, the destruction of national sovereignty, all of that was already being articulated by American liberals and by Soviet communists before the war, during the war, and then in the immediate aftermath. And so in a way, it's really unfortunate because I think there was a lot of lying that took place from American liberals to the American people. And a lot of that involved that their sacrifices were designed primarily to defend American liberty. And what we've seen is that America is less free today than it was in the world prior to 1945. And that's a very unfortunate truth, but one that we young Americans especially will need to grapple with.
That we will, and I think it's important what you laid out there, because on the way I would phrase it is, on the one hand, they didn't die for because that's not what they thought they were fighting for. But you're exactly right that in a sense that's what they were fighting and dying for, both without realizing it, because that's what the powers that be had in mind and had, like you said, that was their angle. Now we're living to 80 years of it coming to fruition. And so it's really, really sad. I mean, you see that, I mean, you're a veteran yourself, and there's a lot of young men who grow up with stars in their eyes and they just love this nation so much. And so they say, I want to serve like my dad served and my grandpa served. They go into the military, they're treated like garbage, they get sent abroad, and they get deployed to all these wars that they realize none of this is in America's interest. In fact, we're actually making things much worse for ourselves.